origin stories on that. Probably the most powerful one is when I was in the third year of my PhD. Actually, it started in the second year. I was asked to go and do a presentation in New York, Cold Spring Harbor, at the Francis Crick Institute, where they basically discovered DNA. It's on Long Island. It's a big symposium type conference center where a lot of the scientists meet up. And I went there with my 10 PowerPoint slides, and there were like 1,000 people in the audience. And the front row had Nobel laureates sitting in the front row. And here I was like in the side aisle, like it was an auditorium that just went up like this, right? And then went from the little podium and then up, and there was people everywhere. And I just remember like being so nauseous, so sick just before my presentation that I actually had to run out the emergency exit. I threw up in the bushes, wiped off my mouth, came back in because my presentation was like 3 minutes later. They called my name. I went up, I gave my presentation, 10 minutes. I have no idea what I said. I can't remember the moment except for just me being so nauseous. And I actually didn't present for 15 years after that, 13 years actually, until about 2016, where I was required to present for my organization. I was strategic director and I had some industry events. I had to get up on stage and speak in front of a few hundred people. And I was completely like terrified of it. And so I started to figure out a way, and now I realize that, oh my God, like I learned it like post 40, that communication is the biggest ROI you can do to your life. Like internal communication, communicating with yourself, that's the person you speak the most to, and communicating with other people. It enables everything, from growing a business to building a relationship to, making friends, and it enables everything. And I was just a poor communicator all of my life. And I found out way too late. And now all I think about is, what if I could just speak to my 20-year-old self and speak to those kids and those people growing up now in their 20s, in their 30s, in their 40s. There's no age to public speaking. And just tell them, because it's just a process in the end. It's just a little bit of mind, a little bit of body, and a little bit of structure. And you can inspire through your story, and you can drive influence and get what you want through your communication. And so now I just, I've come full circle, basically. As we mentioned pre-interview, I trained the PhD students at the AMC and the VU, the two main universities in the Netherlands. That's where I did my PhD. And so I'm able to tell the people that I was 20 years ago, how to do it differently. And it's going to happen to everyone. Everyone gets the chance to stand up and speak up. And so the only thing is are you ready for it? Are you equipped for it? And that's what I help people with now. And that's really driving me to do what I do today. I just don't want people to go through what I went through. Most of us speakers, if you would look at that as an industry, what event managers, events, it's really about bringing people together, right? It always has been. It's like the magic doesn't happen from the stage. It happens in the corridors, right? When you're connecting up with peers and with colleagues and with different companies and forming new relationships, new collaborations. And it's a magical place. It's intense, but it's mostly driven through human connection and the things that we know, and we share that with each other through stories, through presentations, and that one all went away all of a sudden, just like that. They talk about, like in entrepreneurship, they talk about identifying the icebergs, that you only see the top 10%, you don't see the 90%. And who would have picked this one? Like a pandemic that stops all travel and closes down borders. Like, what would that do to events? Oh, and by the way, we can't come together in large groups anymore. Oh my God, that is a big iceberg when you're a public speaker, right? I didn't see that one. I really didn't. A lot of people did. And I think it was Bill Gates has been talking about it for quite some time, right? It's coming. And actually, I've got a book here that's holding up my screen, and it's The Coming Plague. The Coming Plague was written by a lady. I don't know, the computer's in front of it now. I've got my screen behind it. But I think it was published in the early 90s. I read it in 1995 when I started my PhD in medicine. No, actually, I started my bachelor in microbiology, and then I did biotechnology as a master, and then I did a PhD, which was in biotech, but it was actually a PhD in medicine where I focused on HIV. I was curious about bacteria and viruses and what made us sick. And so I just took 12 years and studied them. But this is one of the first books I read, The Coming Plague. And it was like almost 30 years ago, 25 years ago. It took that long for the plague to hit, but it surely hit, didn't it? and so what do we do? And so obviously, I think the elephant in the room is that, well, if we can't connect in the physical, we connect in the digital. Right. So digital is it's accelerating, and that's what digital does. It accelerates. That's what all my keynotes are about. Digital accelerates things. Digital transformation. Why is it painful? It's because we evolve slowly, but technology evolves exponentially. It's very fast, and it goes much faster than we can even comprehend sometimes, right? Through the exponential curve. Because it's binary. It's relentless. Actually, do you know the little story about Jeff Bezos? Jeff Bezos, the richest man in the world, Amazon, right? 3 months before they actually took Amazon as a brand in 1994, when Amazon.com was first established, right? As a brand, as an e-commerce. It was tiny. He was working out of his garage. 3 months earlier, he was trying to pick his brand. And Amazon was one of those options. But the other option that he really wanted, but his lawyers advised him against it. This is a true story, and it's validated if you go online and check it out. He wanted relentless.com. That was his original brand, and he was trying to fight for it. His lawyers would tell him no, and then they ultimately went for Amazon. Relentless.com. That gives you a glimpse into his mindset. He doesn't stop. He's persistent. He's relentless. And if you go to relentless.com and you actually type it in, it just redirects to Amazon. If you look at the who is, it's something that was registered pre Amazon by Jeff Bezos, and that was the original name for Amazon. So it's like technology is relentless. It will keep growing. It will keep invading our lives, and we can't stop it, because really at the end of the day, it makes us more efficient. It goes faster. We're able to, but it's a double-edged sword, right? So one thing I talk about is the power of technology and the power of digital. It's the ability to accelerate information. And that's really when I had to transform as a speaker from stages, because I did it for the people, for the travel, for the, just for the experiences. Going online, I chose in the beginning not to speak. I didn't do it to speak online. That's not something that makes me happy. What I realized is that online, so coaching, for example, and I know a lot of people have become coaches in this era. Well, that's something that actually flows online. It's much better. It sucks to coach physically. You have to travel, buy coffee, all that sort of stuff. It's way too inefficient, but online, it's in and out. It's really quick. And so coaching was actually more natural online. So I decided to pivot my business from speaking to coaching, and to coach people on how to speak. Because the exponential curve is just the first half of a bell curve. That's what's in my TEDx talk. That's what I speak about, right? Everything grows, matures, and decays. Everything, even technology. And so there will be an after. After a storm, there's always the sun comes back out. After winter, there's always the spring. So there will be an after. So there will be a time where we will go back to the stages. And I think that, looking at it strategically from a business perspective, I think a lot of people are going to need a helping hand getting back to the stage, especially if they feared the stage before. They're going to fear the stage even more now, because they've had 1 or 2 years of isolation and only being able to do it through the digital. So I'm really looking forward to the new spring. And now my business is really, so what did I do? It was really simple. Week 1 of the lockdown, held my breath a little bit. Oh my God, what's going to happen here? I have no idea. Week 2, I was giving a full day training, a speaker training. So 2 words came to my mind, because there was a lot of anxiety, a lot of stress, a lot of unknowns, right? Just be kind and be generous with what you know. Those are the 2 things, kind and generous. That drove all of my decisions through the lockdown. People needed help. People needed, someone to care. And so all I did was basically I filmed the training day in 10 lessons. I put them online and I made them absolutely free. And now almost 20,000 people have taken the course. It's actually grown it's already a 6-figure business. There's no speaking involved. It's all coaching. And that just completely pivoted my business. And it started from a free course. And really the guiding principles was just be kind and be generous with what you know. So actually they put everything into a free course. And it has a 20 to 30% share rate. So it's a viral course. And I pump it with Google AdWords. I tried Facebook, didn't work very well because people don't complete the course. There's no intent from Facebook. But on Google, people are actually searching public speaking courses. They've got intent. They're wanting to improve their public speaking skills. They might have a presentation coming up. So the people coming into the course through Google, they actually finish the course. A lot of them, a lot more than people from Facebook, which is a cheaper audience. But there's a lack of intent from a Facebook audience. And so that's my business model. I just acquire people from Google AdWords. I put them into the course, about 30% finish, which is pretty good because it's a free course. And 2 to 3% unlock the course because it's a course. It's 10xspeaker.com, 10 lessons, 10 days, 10 emails. If you want the course, you're going to have to consume over 10 days, but not everyone wants to wait 10 days. What I know from my tech days is that most of these apps like Uber, they're just time apps. They save you time. People will pay for time. And so the course, you have an option just to unlock it and get all the lessons now. And so that's the first layer. And then from there, I've qualified my buyers, right? People that can pay and want to pay. And I offer them a free half-hour coaching call. So I get to meet them. And now I'm qualifying them for the next level, which is group coaching. And then from the group coaching, that's my playing ground. And then I qualify them for the next level, which is one-on-one coaching. So I'm always qualifying my customer for the next level. And the course is the first layer, the group coaching, which is called the accelerator, is the second layer. And the one-on-one coaching, which is the mastermind where I bring all my one-on-ones together, is the third layer. And that's my business model. And it's worked really well. What's being asked of me the most now? So in lesson 10 of the 10x Speaker course, I describe this model called the help model. It's a model I built in my hammock outside. I think I built it like in an hour. It just came to me, and it's the help model. And it's really this 4-step process on how to be a professional speaker. It's a journey to professional speaking. And it starts with a hesitant phase. Now they call it nervousness. I'm too nervous, so I'm not going to go on stage. I don't believe in that. I believe nerves are a very good thing. If defined properly, they can turn into excitement, because we're nervous. If the stakes are high, we'll always be nervous. And so it's not about getting rid of them. It's about learning how to manage them. So really, looking at a positive outcome, you'll get more excited. It's just redefining the feeling that you're having. So from going from a hesitant phase to an excitement phase, being leaning backwards to leaning forward. So that's basically 80% of my clientele is just people that want to get more comfortable on stage. Right. And for that, I have a program for them that helps them get more excited. And what they need is more a method and sufficient practice. Right. And repetition is the mother of all skill. And that's why we have the group environment, which after 3 months, they're good to go. Now, the help model, HE, actually going to the other side of the model, the LP, the next step is thought leadership. So really going into a leadership role. And that's where you're really crossing the chasm. Because the first part of the model, it's about you, and the other side, it's about them. So it's really going across the chasm and really being the thought leader and spreading this thought, this idea, this thing that that's going to help other people. And what that requires is more structure. It's a signature talk. It's something that's off the shelf, people can buy, people can hire you for to deliver. And so that's where, that's about 20% of my clientele, and that's all about structure and the ability to deliver that structure well, right, from a stage. So what they want is a signature talk and plenty of gigs to be able to practice it. They don't have to be paid. They don't care. They just want the story out there because the story will build through those iterations. And the last step is the professional speaking from the help model. It's the P. And what I found that people need at this last phase is a story and a brand. Right? The thought leadership, you'll communicate for your organization mostly or for yourself, but it's this idea you're spreading, right? It's a TEDx talk, for example, but you're not really getting paid for it. Why people will pay you is because you've inserted a story in there that nobody else has. Only you have it. And so you become unique, you become the Mona Lisa. And that's how you can get your prices going up, because, well, hey, there's 1,000 people speaking on innovation, that we need to have Ekteam speaking because he has the story. His story is incredible. When he speaks about innovation, people move. And so the story is one thing, and the story in time builds the brand, right? So Simon Sinek is a classic example of that. He has some powerful stories, and we've cried watching some of his talks. And but at the end of the day, the signature talk, it's really around this golden circle, right? This core, this start with why. And when you expand it out, Simon Sinek is the brand. And so those are the 4 steps. And really 80% of my clientele from 10X Speaker, it's just people wanting to be more comfortable in front of a group of people, not to be sort of restricted by these nerves and all this hesitation. So not even taking the opportunity. That's where most people are. They just find 1,000 reasons why somebody else should do it, because it's too late, they're too busy, they don't know. They just stop right there. So they're hesitant. So really getting them excited, leaning in, taking the opportunity, because through that, they're going to be more comfortable in that environment. So that's really what I've been focusing on. Getting people more comfortable on stage is one side, and getting thought leaders putting structure to their talks and inserting story so that they can create those emotional connections, and through that build the brand. I think the aha moment for me was story. When I started out speaking, it was all about logic. I just wanted to tell the people what to do and how to do it. I didn't actually go into telling any stories, and it made it very monotonous. It made it very repetitive. I was just basically saying the same words every single time, same slides, same words. And it was like this parrot. You pull out the cord and it would just off goes Chris again. When I introduced an element of storytelling into my speaking, I started to enjoy it a lot more. Because even though I was speaking about the same thing over and over again, I was doing it differently every time. I was sharing the story differently every time, depending on who was in front of me and how I was feeling at the time, right? And the vibe of the room. And it just gave it a much richer experience. And so learning how to tell a story was something that really transformed me. And if there's one person that really was the pivotal moment, it would be Eric Edmeades. Eric Edmeades, he's the one that taught me originally how to speak professionally. He's an incredible storyteller. And basically what he does is teach people how to tell a story really well. And what I noticed is that when you can tell one story well, you can tell any story. It's just a method behind it, right? It's a framework that you use. It's how they make movies. It's how they make documentaries. It's how they write books. Stories have a framework to them. And so when you understand the framework, I built my own framework. It's the fear model, because we fear telling stories. It's in lesson 8 of the 10X Speaker course. And I really give you the framework of 4 steps on how to tell a great story, and being able to do that really off the cuff, really easily. And that's what transformed me. And Eric Edmeades was one of those people that really brought my awareness to the power of storytelling. And now, as you know, as most of us know, the speakers watching this, we all know that the cornerstone of powerful speaking is powerful storytelling. Being able to make a point, educate, inspire, and enable through a story, because the story creates the emotional connection. The emotions is what enables memory retention, and all the information delivered through the story, the points, they're the teachings, and that's what people walk away with. But if you don't create the emotion, people are not even going to remember what you said. I said one of the quotes I have when I'm on stage: people won't remember what you say. Absolutely not. 10 years from now, they won't remember a thing. Probably tomorrow, they won't remember it either. People won't even remember what you do, but people will always remember how you made them feel, because feelings give rise to emotions, and it's emotions that makes memory stick. So the key to teaching, the key to great speaking, is really to you've got your teaching point, right? The information you want to get across to your audience. It's really to anchor an emotion in there, because when there's an emotion, it becomes meaningful for them. And when it becomes meaningful for them, there's memory retention, right? And that's all. We just remember the stuff that's meaningful. We remember the stuff that makes us emotional, the stuff that we want. And often it's the story that's you're able to relate with the person in the audience, because they have a story too. And it's very similar. There's overlap between every story. Even though you're telling your story and you think you're the only one, probably over half the audience have had a very similar story. So when your car is red, their car is yellow. When your door is blue, their door is black. There are all these analogies, and it helps people really remember and appreciate. And sometimes really the most powerful stories are the stories where you're not even telling the point. The points are waking in their minds, and they're going, just had an idea, and now they own it. And so there's no convincing, there's nothing to do. They own it. They're going to do something about it. It's theirs. And all they tell you is not, thank you for giving me the point. Thanks for sharing the story, because it made me come up with a really beautiful point. And I'm going to do something about it now. And that was your strategic objective all along, to have the point just awake in their mind. And I learned this. The storytelling was the cornerstone to me just catapulting as a speaker and going professional as a speaker. So I've been asked to come and talk on structure. Really, lesson 5 of the course, it's about story mapping. When I applied this to my speaking, everything changed. I didn't have to remember anymore. The problem with speaking is people, what if I forget what I want to say? How do I remember everything I wanted to say? And I found a technique. I learned the basis of the technique from Eric Edmeades. He calls it, I call it story mapping. He calls it speech mapping. And it's really mind mapping. It's very simple. We've used mind maps. We know mind maps, but what I've realized is that we remember things much better in images. So this is an example of a story map, right? It's literally a keynote speech that I would give. And there's a lot of structure here. And this, if I look at this long enough and there's an emotional connection to this page, there's going to be memory retention, and you develop a semi-photographic memory, right? You can see your speech and you see it as an image, beginning, middle, and end. It's usually 4 or 5 stories, and each of them have points, and you can see it, and you have it with you next to a glass of water on the lectern, on the stage. So if you forget, you just take a glass of water, do everyone a favor and slow down, right? And then you look at your story map and you know exactly where you are. And so I'll be teaching story mapping, and that's really about a great beginning, a great ending, and there are certain components you need to put in the beginning and the end. The beginning's all about earning attention. The end's all about the next step and making sure you're reaching your strategic objectives. And in the middle, I'll be talking about the structure on what story goes first, second, and third. And there, I developed a method, and actually I learned this from some internet guru whiz. He's the, here he is, this guy, Shoe Money. And he's like the affiliate marketer of the century. He had the biggest check in AdSense. You know, he's the one, you probably remember him. He held an AdSense check for like $135,000. Google used him as like a child poster boy to, and this one's also signed by Shoe Money. And this guy gave me the gift of a lifetime. This guy, and his book's great. It's just an autobiography, and he is an incredible person, better marketer. He told me about the 3 Ps, and I actually read that. I think it was 1997, 1998. I read it a long time ago. It was, I remember, a PDF document. I was still a kid, and I downloaded it, and it described this process on how to influence people. And the 3 Ps is simply pain, potential, proof. And if you roll out a story or a keynote, firstly addressing the pain, why they should care. They can associate with the pain, the problem. And then, only then do you start to unroll the potential, the solution on how to solve that pain. But that's not enough, because now people are associating with the pain. They love the potential solution. Oh, haven't tried this one before. And so what they need next is a little bit of proof, a little bit of evidence that it's worth a try, that it's worked before. So you come in with evidence, you come in with data, you come in with success cases, and basically you make them go over the tipping point. And the next step is, of course, the next step. Sign the check, sign up here, buy here, and it influences people. So inside the Pay Potential Proof, that's lesson 6 of the 10x Speaker course. It's all free. It's on 10x Speaker, and I'll be talking about lesson 5 and 6 during the conference live, and really taking you potentially a level deeper. But I don't believe more is better. I believe better is better. So I'm not going to be trying to tell you more than what's in the course, but I'm just going to be making it more contextually relevant to the people listening, and that is people with ambition to become professional speakers, and how to just really bring great structure to your talk. So it depends what stage of their speaking career they are. Now, most people you'll meet are very much in the beginning. They're very much in the first couple of years. They're still defining their talks, they're defining their brand, they're still refining their stories. You know, it's like a pyramid, right? Whichever, like if you go for the servant leader, I think based on what we were talking before, it's like this. Most people, the top of the pyramid, it's basically people just starting out in thought leadership. And there's very few that actually, you know, make it to something like a Tony Robbins or a Simon Sinek. You know, that takes a lot of persistence. We all forget the silent decade, and sometimes it's silent decades, right? Where we're really like just building and chipping away at it. And when we're old and gray, finally it comes together. And the people that are able to do that at a young age, hats off to them. It's probably digital that's enabled them, right? It's probably because they've had the foresight to really reach people faster and pay for it, because that's what money does. It accelerates things when it comes to marketing. What I would say for, I think most people watching this, most people are in their first 3 years. I'm in my 4th year. We try to be about too many things. And a message for all is a message for none. So the biggest tip I would say is be about one thing for one person. If you can be everything for that one person and give them exactly what they need and want and solve their problems, there are plenty more people like that. And so just go out and find them. Really, at the end of the day, I learned this from Seth Godin. It's just finding the people who care. More specifically, finding the people who already care. Because the people who care, you don't have to convince them. They're on your boat anyway. All you need is a solution for them. So you just need to connect on the problem, present the solution, and they're going to want to know more. And that's where you bring the product in, and that will be the service you're selling on the back end. Right? So the message is be about one thing. I was about building meaningful connections online, how to connect in a meaningful way through technology. It's a hyper-connected world right now. That was great to launch my speaking career. I did hundreds of keynotes on the back end of meaningful connections for tech companies. My first year of speaking, I did 96,000 in revenue, which is pretty good for a first year as a professional speaker. My goal was 100,000. I didn't quite reach it, but hey, close enough. And now I'm not about meaningful connections anymore, because we're in the pandemic, we're in COVID. Now I'm all about enabling other speakers to tell better stories, right? And really stringing those stories together to create great structure and great signature talks. So I choose, because every choice has a trade-off. You can't make a choice if there's not a trade-off. And that's where a lot of people go wrong, is they're just adding more is better, right? No, more is not better. Better is better. And so it's really about finding the essence in what you do. And one thing, if you're about one thing, people are clear on that. If you're about too many things, people are confused. Confused people say no. So be about one thing, even though you might be about 3. Lead with one thing, but hook it to the right market. So Jon, he's great at consulting on product to market fit. You might want to be about 3 things, but each thing has its unique market. Don't cross them over, because people get confused, and confused people say no, unless there's fear involved. But then you have to sometimes install fear in them, and then they will act. But that's not where most of us want to go. That's where a lot of the politics are, right? But that's not where speakers are. We just want people that really like, that need to be here, that need to be with us. We don't need to pull people in with 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 you know, manipulative techniques. So be one thing for one person, and then just scale that. And that should be your first year of speaking. Once you are established in that niche for that audience, now you've got a ton of experience, a ton of practice, a ton of just experience. Now you can start to branch out. What have they been telling you? What do they want more from you? What are the other things that you know? Could you replicate this model on another industry with another topic? Branch out only in your second or third year. And I think the bottleneck for a lot of starting speakers in their first year, they're trying to be about too many things for too many people, and it just creates a bottleneck, and they can't get through that because it's a wall.